Okay, here's yet another Reason demo. This one is going to be talking about using effects. In Reason, I can use effects two different ways, one as an insert and one as an auxiliary send effect. The difference has to do with how I want to route the signal. If I have an instrument and I have an effect I want to apply to it, and it's the only instrument that's going to use that effect, then I might create it as what's called an insert, meaning that I'm inserting it in between the instrument itself and the mixer, so that only that instrument can use that effect. If I have an effect, however, that I want lots of different instruments to take advantage of, instead of having to create a new effect for each instrument, I can create it as an auxiliary send, meaning that each instrument is going into the mixer, and then I can send that signal out of the mixer to the effect and then back in, so that anybody can take advantage of it if they have the auxiliary send knob turned up on their particular channel strip. So to show you how that works, I'm going to need to create a couple different instruments. Let me get this out of the way. In this case, it doesn't really matter what I use, so I'm just going to grab a subtractor, throw it in there, grab a maelstrom, throw it in there. The subtractor sound, let's activate that. Just came up with a bass guitar. The maelstrom, kind of a choir sound. Let's say, for example, on the subtractor that I want to have a delay type of echo effect. I'm to add that, and sorry, I want this as a delay effect, but I only want it for the subtractor, this bass line. I don't want the choir sound to ever use it or any other instrument in my project to use that effect. So I'm going to create it as an insert. That is, I'm going to insert it between the subtractor bass instrument to the mixer. So to do that, I need to go down the list of my devices, and the second section of it are all of my effects, and one of those happens to be a delay, so a red one. To insert it between the instrument and the mixer, I need to make sure I select the instrument I want to assign it to, and notice that there's a blue box around the instrument showing me that it is highlighted. And now I can just double click on digital delay line, and it has inserted it underneath this instrument. I can make sure the signal flow is correct by hitting the tab key, flipping Reason around, and I can see, here's my subtractor, I can see the main output is coming out into my effect, and then my effect is going out up into my mixer. So I've inserted in between the two. Flip that back around with the tab key. Now if I play, okay, I'm actually hitting the key now, and we hear this delay. In fact, we didn't hear the sound at first. Well, that's because the delay basically delays the sound, but all I'm hearing right now is the delayed sound, not the original sound. And this is fairly straightforward, simple type of controls. How many times do I want it to kind of repeat, to delay? And I have the important one is on the far right, it says dry or wet. Dry means if something's completely dry, that means I'm not affecting it with an effect at all. So I bring that down, I don't hear any effect, and it plays right when I hit the key. If I move it all the way to wet, I'm only hearing the effect and not the original sound. So I have this discernible delay from when I hit the key. So I might want to bring this down a bit so I can hear both the original sound and the delay. Pretty simple, and I have different ways that I can change this, but this is a very basic delay. So that's creating an insert. The maelstrom, that delay is not happening with that because it is only assigned to the subtractor right now. So let's say I want to add some other type of effect. Maybe instead of a delay type effect, I want to use a phaser or a flanger or a chorus, something like that, to change the sound. So instead of creating an insert, I'm not going to select an instrument and then double click. I'm going to make it as an auxiliary send, meaning that it needs to be actually attached to my mixer. So I'm going to click on the mixer. Notice I've got the blue box around it again, and now I'm going to double click on whichever effect I want. Oh, let's just do a chorus flanger. So double click, and notice it shows up underneath my mixer now. And I can hit tab key again, and I can see, oh hey, the mixer has an auxiliary out going into my effect and then back in. The way this works, and if I play something right now, here's my bass sound. I still hear my delay, but I'm not hearing any chorus or flanger effect. I can put it on my maelstrom. Still not hearing anything. And that's because with auxiliary sends, you'll only hear the effect if you send some signal to that effect. And at the top of each channel strip are these 4 red auxiliary send knobs. They're numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 3, 4. And that just means that if whichever effect I've assigned to auxiliary send 1, 2, 3, or 4, I just need to move that knob up to hear, to send some signal and to hear that effect. Since this is the only one I've done, it's assigned to number 1. So if I want to hear some of this, subtractor, that is the bass, with some chorus flanger, I need to bring up this knob. Oh, let's put in some okay, now we can really hear the difference, and we've really cranked that up, so I might just want a little bit. Okay, what about the other instrument, the maelstrom? Here's what it is without the effect. Here's what it's going to be with a little bit added. So I'm going to the maelstrom, the second channel strip, bringing up my auxiliary 1. Ah, now I can hear that. Totally different sound. Here's without the effect. Here's it with that effect. Okay, so the reason for doing this, again, is if I have a particular effect that only that instrument is going to use, or maybe for some more advanced routing purpose I want to add it as an insert, it's going to be an effect insert. If I want it, though, to be utilized by multiple instruments using the same effect parameters, then I'm going to create it as an auxiliary send and send it out. In the hardware days, a big reason we would do this, of course, is if I only had one reverb rack type of effect, I could only, I'd have to route the signal to that one box. I would have to buy a bunch of different ones if I wanted them to have different settings and different instruments using different reverbs. With software, of course, it's not a big deal. We're not going to the store and buying additional reverb units or anything like that, but it does take up more RAM to use any of those effects. So if I'm going to share the same effect, why not just create it once and use it as an auxiliary send? The other reason is, of course, ease of use. If everyone's going to use the exact same type of reverb, I want them to all sound like they're in a big cathedral, the exact same size cathedral. Why recreate that over and over again? You can just create it once, and then you can decide how much of each signal is going to get of that. So it allows you to have a little more control, but it's all about the signal path of who's going to be using that effect or not. And obviously, if I have an auxiliary send set up, I of course don't have to, an instrument doesn't have to go to that just because it's an auxiliary send. That's what I decide with the red auxiliary send knobs, whether they're getting any or a whole lot of signals sent to that effect. Okay, so have fun with that as well.